Hi everybody, Mark here from pondalgaesolutions.com, and in this video I want to go over a progression of algae reduction with some photographs both from the ground and from the air that were provided by a customer of ours, Ben, who lives in southeast Iowa. He had algae starting to crop up and he treated the pond with a couple of Biosphere Pros, which are our time release beneficial bacteria product. And he already had aeration in the pond, but he noticed algae starting to crop up and felt that it was maybe potentially going to explode and get out of hand. And so he wanted to, at least to the best of his ability, proactively treat with the biospheres and see how they would do. So I'm going to go through a sequence of photographs that have been provided and sort of tell you how this is typically what we see with this product and what we would expect to see with a beneficial bacteria regimen. The products like this do not treat quickly or do not change the pond environment quickly, but they do target the root of why someone is having an algae issue. Keep in mind, my philosophy has always been, and this goes back 2 decades now, that algae is a symptom, not the problem. The problem is typically excessive nutrients in the pond are driving excessive growth. And so that's what our protocol targets. Yes, you could use an algicide, you could kill the plant off, but it's not doing anything to address the nutrients that are driving this growth. And so, and I also might mention that this is an eco-friendly, non-chemical approach to trying to deal with the problem. Typically, we would look at aeration as a frontline defense. Now, Ben already has aeration installed and running, and so he has that foundation in place. The higher oxygen, dissolved oxygen levels in the water will help microbes work better. And so the next step on this, if he's still seeing algae issues, is to try a beneficial bacteria product. And again, we're trying to lower nutrients in the water rather than use a chemical to just simply knock the algae down. This sequence of pictures that we're going to go through is very indicative of what you could see with a treatment like this. Again, it is intending to shift the pond and its nutrient level very, very gradually. Therefore, it's extremely safe for fish and other wildlife, pets and people. Extremely safe product to use and to try. And so that's why we like it so much. And for us, quite frankly, aeration and potentially supplemental beneficial bacteria is how we start with almost any algae problem. We always reserve chemicals for the last resort. So here you see on day 1, 2 of the biospheres were deployed. And this is on 5/10 of 23. And what you can't see very clearly in this photograph, you see a little bit of algae at the surface, but underneath the surface there's a lot of growth starting to come up. And a lot of this type of algae will start low or down at the bottom of the pond, and then it will column up or bloom up and start to spread across the surface. Ben was seeing this underwater algae and getting very concerned that it could really take off. And so he was able to get the spheres in fairly early on in this whole process. So the next slide will show day 10. This is 10 days later, and as you can see, the algae did indeed progress. It did start to come to the surface and spread out on the surface. And we are 10 days in from the initial introduction of the spheres. And this is a good example, I think, of treating a pond that is going into a cycle of growth. It is not something we expect to see where the algae is just going to immediately start to turn around and disappear. It's not going to be like a chemical. The beneficial bacteria population or the density has to build up enough over a few weeks, let's say, to start really affecting these nutrients. And so typically you could see algae continue to bloom even after deployment of the spheres or any other beneficial bacteria for a short period of time. By day 13, from this aerial drone shot, you can see that the algae is there, but it does not appear to be expanding anymore. Now, I've taken a selected number of these photographs that Ben sent to me. He sent a lot more than what we're showing, and you could see that the algae had grown or expanded day by day, but at this point it seems to have slowed down or stopped, and that's day 13. By day 17, the algae is starting to turn a different color. It's starting to go a little more green-brown. It looks like it's dying off, and the algae is actually reducing in some spots. Now what's happening is that the algae is dying and it is falling out of the water column, meaning it's falling off the surface and starting to sink. By day 18, the algae is again turning darker and starting to break apart. And this is another indicator that you're making some good progress with the nutrient levels in the pond. They are indeed going down. These nutrients would be something like nitrogen or phosphorus. And the microbes use these and consume these just as algae would, but the intention in our work here is that they outcompete the algae for the available nutrients that are there. And simply, they don't eliminate them, but they bring them back into a better level of balance so the algae simply cannot thrive and bloom aggressively. By day 22, the algae continues to recede, and the interesting thing here is that you will start to see, as you go out and visit a pond that's actually going through this process day by day, you will actually see it start to, for no better word, magically seem to disappear. Again, it's not disappearing, it's just breaking apart and it's sinking out of the water column. Now the good news with bacteria though, compared to a chemical, yes, the same thing happens with a chemical. You kill the plant, it will sink and it will die. But in that case, you get basically a decaying vegetative mass at the bottom of the pond, and it accumulates. And with a copper algicide, copper also kills beneficial bacteria. So you would not want to mix something like the Biosphere with a copper-based algicide. In a natural pond, though, that would normally have some microbial population, that copper will kill that base of beneficial bacteria, and therefore you get a very, very slow breakdown of any organic material. This is dead plant matter that would sink to the bottom. Conversely, with a bacteria product like this, that is actually going to help speed up the breakdown of that dead plant matter and organic matter as well, and it will actually clean it up over time. They will use that for food and consumption as well. So it actually serves as a broad spectrum pond cleaner and nutrient balancer, for no better word, and this is what you see when things work well. So by day 30, and this is the last day of his photographs that he sent, and he's going to be starting the second month of treatment just to mop up some of the remaining algae, but by day 30 the algae is nearly gone, and as I mentioned, the bottom cleanup of the dead plant material begins. So this is a great rundown, a great example of what we would often see in using beneficial microbes. Now, unlike many out there in this pond business world, I'm not going to claim that this is going to work in every pond. It works much of the time, and from a standpoint of how ponds function and how they work, to me it is the logical place to start with aeration and some form of microbial supplementation. It just makes sense because of its safety, its environmental friendly nature. It's really targeting the root of the problem too, but it may not be enough in every case. But in Ben's case, happily, it worked great, and as he continues on with maybe one more month of treatment, he should be able to clean up the rest, and then we would probably stop treatments with microbes and see how well the aeration could maintain things going forward. So it's a good story from him. Really appreciate him sending this along too, and I would say we don't collect enough of this type of thing. I'll admit that right off, but if you have used the Biospheres and have any before and after video, photographs, shots, you're welcome to send them in. We'll send you a coupon, discount coupon out that is a way of saying thanks for sharing that kind of information. And it's helpful, when people can see actually how this process works. At any rate, I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have questions about pond algae control, ponds in general, reach out to us at pondalgaesolutions.com. We'll be happy to help, and I hope you have a great day wherever you are.